What's up, YouTube, and welcome to Codename Scream. I am that horror guy.
And I'm Mel.
And make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications for all things horror. Welcome back to With Footage Being Found. We are at the tail end of this series, and at the tail end of the series we've been covering to this point. So where are we at today?
We are doing Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. Finally, they didn't just throw a number after it and they got a creative name.
Yeah!
Released January 3rd, 2014, written and directed by Christopher Landon, produced by Oren Peli and Jason Blum. And then we'll talk about budget and box office, which still interesting. Surprisingly,
Yeah.
we're 5 films in and we're still
good. Still doing weird. So the budget has been estimated between $5 million and $9.2 million. Not a conclusive number. If you are involved or know someone that is, or even might know that conclusive number that neither one of us found, sound off down here, because I'm actually curious. But the movie raked in $90.9 million. Still the lowest in the franchise to date.
Yep.
But if you were to adjust that for 2021 inflation, we're at $103.3 million. It's only been a few years, but we still got to adjust.
Still a success.
Still a success, and raked in a little bit extra there.
Yeah.
So what did the critics have to say about this one?
Well, the critics and audience, they're very similar this time. And critics 39%, audience 34%.
It's about time
So we are going down.
We are finally not only going down, we're finally at an even playing field for, I think,
Everyone's
the first
agreeing.
time.
Yeah.
I don't think we've come this close to everyone in agreement ever,
Yeah.
including you and I.
Yeah. And it's crazy because this film, it was predicted to open #1 debut weekend, but guess what else came out? Frozen.
Oh, let it go.
So, yep. So it came in a close second. It grossed 18.3 opening weekend. So, you know, still a lot, but you can't beat Elsa and Anna.
No,
apparently.
you can beat out Saw in the Halloween time, but you are not taking down Disney, and you're not taking out Anna and Elsa.
All right, so let's talk about this film a little bit. Tell us what happened in this one.
Yeah, this one was interesting. So this was the attempt at, I'm assuming, an anthology, being as it was, actually not given a number.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of discussed what is going on outside of the actual storyline, providing a little bit more there. Sort of. Kind of, not really at the same time.
They tried.
They attempted. But this follows around Jesse, who just graduated high school, his group of friends, and, again, we're kind of just uselessly shooting, because why not? Mm-hmm. They're doing B-grade jackass stunts at one point. That was awesome.
With the
With
laundry
laundry basket flying off. Oh, I'm not stupid. Like,
and he's like, I can't believe you did it.
We did things like that growing up.
Oh, definitely.
So it was just fun to actually, watch that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the beginning, we had watched the graduation ceremony, Oscar giving his giant speech and whatnot, and then he's like, oh, I want a camera like that, and then gets all the money from his graduation party to buy that, because that's what you do with he had a ton of money.
He did.
Like, way more than that camera was worth. They end up at one point accidentally filming some gang activity going on. The one friend lays out one of the gang members in process. Mm-hmm. And we had the weird neighbor downstairs, Anna. Another Anna, not the one that beat out the box office Anna, but an older version of Anna. Maybe she actually let it go. So we've got that Anna living downstairs, and they decide to put the camera down, which is, I love that. I took my dad's HEDMI cable, because HDMI was so new, they took the HEDMI cable. So they HDMI the camera to the TV, and they're just going down this little this air chute, and there's a naked girl. And they're, being teenagers, are freaking out that there's this naked girl, and here comes Anna. And he's just like, oh my God, freaking out, understandably so.
And Anna just doesn't have the most pleasant figure in the world.
No.
So seeing her, naked was not super pleasant, but...
And we see her spreading blood in a symbol around the young girl's stomach. And they're just like, this is really weird and whatnot. And then Jesse's grandmother comes in just spouting off in Spanish at him, yelling and going crazy. It was awesome. I love that whole scene. And then, turns out Oscar pops up randomly the next day. Yeah, same Oscar, but he's a little different than he was when we last saw him. He was a little more happy-go-lucky, and now he's a little angry. Oscar kills Anna randomly, because that's why?
Yep.
So turns out, Anna's dead. So they go down into her apartment to go look through it, because that's what you do in a crime scene. You put your fingers and your fingertips in your.
They were touching everything.
There was no gloves. There was no nothing. I mean, if you're gonna go to a crime scene, do it the right way.
Yeah.
Get some gloves on. Do something. But no, let's go touch everything we can possibly see and steal a notebook along the way while we're at it. And this notebook is kind of just explaining what's going on, like all these different rituals you can do, and bringing back essentially Toby.
Yes.
Because we can't get away from Toby for one movie at least. We're getting the back history, so I assume it's fine. Whatever. But then we come across Oscar again a little bit later, and he pops up out of the floor because. The next thing you do in a crime scene is take a girl to hook up there.
Yeah, definitely.
Because nothing would go wrong there.
Yep.
Well, Oscar pops out of the floor, and this girl runs out. I was dead. I was dying.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, and he looks worse than he ever did before.
Yeah.
And ends up cornering Jesse and saying, they're coming for you next. She did this to me, and then launches himself off the roof of the house. That was awesome, though. Yep. I will say, was not expecting that. I totally forgot about that, and then I rewatched, and there's just a slam on the car. I'm like, ah!
Every scene with him was super unexpected, because when he, killed Anna, they were shooting by the garbage cans, and he jumps on top of it, and that, scared me to death.
Once again, Paranormal Activity with the effective jump scares. And, and then... it turns out Oscar's brother is involved in the gangs and locally, and even says that wasn't him and whatnot. And then Jesse wakes up with a bite on him, similar to the bite that Katie had back in the first film. So now everything's starting to kind of make sense together. And these rituals talk about time travel and whatnot on top of the bringing back Toby. And we watch as Jesse becomes superhuman, which he's doing all these different stunts. They upload it on YouTube because, that's what people do, is upload things to YouTube these days. You're watching this, so clearly we thought the same thing, right? Never mind. I can't do that. I'm going to actually fall through the curtain if I try. So he does some cool stunts, and they think that's all fake and whatnot. And then Jesse his demeanor starts to just diminish. Starts to get a little more irritable and a lot more angry towards everybody, abusing the dog at one point. I was not cool with that scene. No. That scene bothered me a little bit. Using his powers to abuse the dog, denounces his best friend and whatnot. Yeah. And turns out there is a lady there. Her information was in the house about she got experience with this. Her kid went missing, fell victim to this, and so she gives us the back history. Ellie. Yeah, she discusses about there's a coven of witches called the Midwives. That was the lamest name for the coven, too. Really? Couldn't come up with a better name. We have the Midwives, and they're, you get your firstborn son out of this family. So now we're correlating the other storylines. Finally, everything's starting to kind of come together. And she says, they meet at this house and puts it up on the map and whatnot. And at this point, Jesse's in full ass kick mode. Almost kills two of them in the process.
Yep.
So then he gets taken away to this house. So they're like, we're going to go after him. So they go and tell Oscar's brother. And they're like, it's the ladies, the ones that, change your brother. And then we go into full just
gangster
gang activity. Awesome. Best parts of this whole movie come in the end. And two of them just come with a whole trunk full of weaponry and just start opening fire on every witch running at them. And that was awesome. Just watching these witches run out. Boom! One flies that way, one flies the other way. They're going everywhere. And his friend Hector, who has been through this whole entire thing, he hides in a closet from them at one point. Rightfully so. These chicks are everywhere.
And they're
terrifying. No, not dealing with it. And he opens up the door. He ends up falling, kinda, sorta, and lands in a living room, or kitchen, I'm sorry. Ends up in a kitchen. Looks a little familiar.
Yeah, very familiar.
Looks awfully familiar. Starts walking around. We see Katie coming down the stairs. And it's Katie from the first film. So we have successfully gotten our time travel sequence put into place. And it's not just that, it's the last scene of the first film where she's going to kill Mika.
And we find out why she's screaming Mika's name.
Yep.
Because there is a strange boy in her kitchen.
There's a strange guy in her kitchen hanging out. But I like that because for a moment she plays it off because he's like, who are you and whatnot. She's still in her trance, and then she comes out of it holding the knife, and that's when she's like, So then Mika comes running downstairs as he did, and he's like, who the hell are you? And tries to start fighting him. Meanwhile, Mika goes at Katie, and then he gets stabbed. So that kind of, makes you wonder,
Well, that was super interesting to me because in the first one, when she's screaming Mika's name, I thought she was still in her trance and she was doing it as a trap.
Yep. Same here.
And turns out that's not the case.
It wasn't the case at all. And then, did Mika die in vain after all? I mean, granted, he had it coming, as I've said previously. But then we get Jesse in his full-blown possessed state. Awesome. And that's it.
Yep.
That was the end.
Yep.
So, what do we got for fun facts on this one?
Well, this would be obvious if you think about it. The production of this film took longer than any other Paranormal Activity films. Wonder why?
Yeah.
They had to hire all those witches and
There's a lot more cast involved this
find
one.
some guns and it was originally supposed to be released in October, but because of the delay in production, it was the only movie in the franchise to not be released in October.
Yep.
So it was, like I said earlier, released in January.
I think that hurt them.
I think so
time.
too, because that 4 years in a row, we've had Halloween, Paranormal Activity,
Yeah, it took over for Saw after knocking Saw out.
Yep.
Took over, and then nothing.
Yep.
So.
And it was the first film in the franchise to not have any nights.
Yep. That was the nice little change.
The night 1, night 2. And I was kind of getting sick of that by 4.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I was kind of glad they did away with that. Andrew Jacobs, who plays Jesse, has several tattoos that were removed in post-production. So if you look this guy up on the internet, he's got them on his hands, he's got them on his neck, he's got them everywhere. And you actually, in the scene where he's fighting those gangsters, at the vending machine, they actually slip up and you can see one on his leg.
Oh.
So go back and watch
see
that because you'll see it. It was the first and only Paranormal Activity movie to have the Paramount image in the opening of the film.
Yep.
So before, that kind of took some of the authenticity out of it because you see the Paramount logo and you're like, I know the Paramount made this.
Yep.
And, you kind of know they made the other ones, but then,
It took away a lot from that.
Yep. The only film in the franchise also to not have a camera point of view on the theatrical poster.
It was just, I didn't like the poster.
The poster was dumb.
The poster
was goofy. Yeah, yeah. The working title of the film was Paranormal Activity, The Oxnard Tapes. I don't know why that would have been the working title, because I don't know what an Oxnard is.
It has nothing to do with the series.
Yep, so...
It's not filmed in Oxnard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe it's like their occult dictionary.
Hey,
The Oxnard Dictionary.
The Oxnard Dictionary. Who knows anymore?
Yeah. So, what did you think about this movie? Because you kind of had a poker face this whole time. I can't really tell.
Yeah, that was the intention. I actually really like this one a lot. Out of the entire series, it was the most different, obviously. We had the Paramount logo. This one felt more like an actual feature film, not found footage. It just had the sprinkling of found footage. This felt to me kind of like the vein of Cloverfield, Quarantine, those types of found footage, where they're not really found footage. They just label it as so. I liked the storyline on it. I liked the, watching Jesse's degradation slowly. It was a lot more authentic than Katie's. Katie's was just very forced. It was like, oh crap, we're at the end of the movie. Go. Right. His was, happy. I'm not so happy, and just going. I loved it. And by the time he was full-blown evil, he was scary. Yeah. And fantastic acting from him. At points was very uncomfortable. The Coven of Witches, those witches were legitimately scary. And it didn't take a lot for them to be scary. And that was something I really appreciated about this. And just some of it just reminded me of neighborhoods that I used to hang out with friends in growing up. So it had a bit of a nostalgic feel at times even. Just overall, really well done. And though it was like, why are you filming this and whatnot, I enjoyed it.
Okay.
It had a little bit of comedy. It had a little bit of, fear to it. And I liked the idea of the time travel aspect being brought into it. I like that we kind of got some loose ends tied up.
Sure.
Something that I could have done away with, but as a whole, I loved it. But you seem to have been holding kind of a poker face at the same time, so how are we feeling here?
This is gonna be a Team Mel, Team Chris argument.
Oh!
Because I did not like this movie.
Oh, come on.
There are parts in it I loved.
Okay.
But to me, there was a lot of fat in this that could have been trimmed. Like, to me, this could have been a 20-minute short film.
Fair enough.
I liked the backstory with the witches, but you still don't get many answers. And I feel like we should have gotten an answer to this point. I'll talk about some things I did like about it. I did like Jesse's progression, as you talked about. I liked seeing, the state of possession from beginning to end that didn't feel so choppy as it did in previous films. I loved the scene where they're hunting witches.
Because it's so good.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of like playing a video game like Silent Hill or Left 4 Dead or one of those games. Like it felt like very video game.
Oh yeah,
which I thought was super cool.
Especially with how they were flying back from shots and whatnot. It was awesome.
I loved that. That aspect of it was fantastic. There were certain parts of this that I didn't need. I didn't need Anna. Like, what was her purpose? There was really no purpose. We didn't even need the dude that killed Anna.
No.
They could have, brought about their finding, like, this book or something in a much quicker, cleaner way.
Sure.
To me, that just felt like an unnecessary 20 minutes. And throughout the whole film, there was just unnecessary moment after unnecessary moment to me. It felt super long. Like I actually watched this in 2 sittings because I couldn't get through it all in one sitting. It just felt incredibly long, and parts of it felt really hokey, like super cheesy to me. And it could have been written to be so like gnarly, and it really wasn't. It wasn't, I feel like, as graphic as it could have been. There was a lot that, like, the most graphic thing to me was the, like, grandma or whatever, when she gets her hand all, like, mutilated, and
or when she's on the ground after she gets shoved down the stairs.
So I think they could have made this a lot more graphic, and actually in turn making it a lot less hokey. And, I'll talk about another scene I really loved. When they're in the apartment and they're totally freaking out and they don't know where he went, and all of a sudden he just bursts through thin air.
He's like floating
all the
and all.
furniture and
yeah.
That was cool. That's also where the budget came in. Because that was like incredible. That was I'm not gonna say I hated this film, because in order for me to hate the film, I can't have anything I like about it.
Right.
And there were things I did like about it, but overall, I didn't really like it. I just thought it was weak. To me, it's the weakest one in the franchise. So.
Fair enough. One other thing I did forget about, Brent, I loved the Simon toy being used.
Yeah, that
the only
was
thing
cool.
I didn't like about it, though, is like green and red obviously is go and stop and whatnot, but that part I could have done away with. In the sense of like it should have like done like a pattern or anything.
Well, I think the reason they did that, there's actually a tool that paranormal investigators use that is a very similar device. It's like a triangle thing. I forget what it's called, and it's red on one side and green on the other.
Oh.
And it's green is yes and red is no. So I think it was kind of like an homage to that.
It's like an EVP meter almost?
Sorta, yeah. And it's just like the spirits are supposed to be able to answer yes or no questions through this red and green.
Oh, okay. That
device.
makes a little more sense then.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a play on that.
All right. Well, what side are you guys joining this week? Team Mel or Team Chris? Sound off in the comments here below. Talk to us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Email us. Let's talk a little bit more about this. Where do you guys stand on this one? And to round out this series, we're finally there. So we're going to be done with the found footage series. We are going to be covering the last Paranormal Activity, the Ghost Dimension. Yes. So you won't want to miss out on that one.
It's the one I'm most excited to talk about.
Oh, yeah. I've been waiting for this one, and I'm hoping you guys have as well. So with that being said, scare you later, YouTube.